tell me, Jones, the reason you're alive is because, you know, the system in a way finds it entertaining, and it's almost a way that everything's just fleshed out so they can look at it from different perspectives. But there's so many different camps involved. No one wants to kill you because you're so well known. Then that can be used to be blackmail against them. So the way it's been put is there's too much paperwork.
There's no question about that. That's absolutely, you're right on with that. Now, there have been a couple of attempts. One time, when I was in the middle of the Iran-Contra things, et cetera, doing exposés relative to that, a guy drove a station wagon through my sliding glass doors and missed killing me by 3 feet in my office.
That's their favorite way to kill you. Well, I was about to say, if it's a certain case where you've got original data that can get them, that's when they kill you.
That's right. Right, and there's also different ways to do it, and there's 2 or 3 other events, but we'll talk about that some other time. But on Sonny's case, I had delivered, as a matter of fact, it was related to originally I believe probably one of my journeys to Washington, talking to some of the Dante Feisel's people doing, or Henry Gonzalez. I did things relative to the finances when he was connected with investigating some of the financial garbage going on. He was a congressman out of Texas. Anyhow, the bottom line was somehow we crossed paths. I crossed paths in Washington with one of the guy that ran Sonny's offices, Sonny Bono. And I told him I was working on this major thing connecting the CIA and drugs. Now, this was after the Waco events and all of that stuff. Sonny had become so traumatized when he got up to Washington. You know, again, he knew about corruption, but he was destroyed when he started finding out how high it went and how deep it went and how extraordinary it was relative to billions and multi-millions of dollars.
I'm going from memory, but didn't he break down and cry over Waco
Absolutely.
and stuff?
Yes, he did.
And I remember watching him on C-SPAN because I was addicted to C-SPAN at that time, and he was really starting to get in people's faces, and you could tell he was freaking out that he was in the middle of a bunch of crooks.
Yes, he did. He actually broke down and cried. You know, you can look at that from 2 sides. His life and mine were so terribly familiar. I did things in the record business that he did in the record business. He, of course, became much more famous, but nonetheless, he and I ran down mutual railroad lines side by side, like you and I. But anyhow, to get back to what took place there, so I told Sonny was looking into the narcotics, etc., and of course Maxine Waters was doing her theatrical thing relative to it on the floor of the Congress, screaming and yelling about the connections. So at that time now, I was living in Los Angeles. All right, this is early 90s. I had moved to L.A., and Congressman Waters' offices were right close by. I contacted them, and I said, I'm going to finish this report in a couple of weeks. I want to give it to you. And I said, now, this names names that you're not going to want to talk about. You know, and they said, which of course I heard that before, they said, oh, we don't care wherever the chips fall, you know, in the name of honesty, you know, and I thought, yeah, ha-ha, on that one. So I supplied her with a copy of this, her offices, and I supplied Sonny. Now, Sonny took a couple of months. In that interim period of time, Waters slowed down and was no longer screaming and yelling about the narcotics being supplied to the streets of America by our high-level government.
Somebody had gotten a message to her because she was on the news before that, I remember.
Right.
She was going and confronting the CIA director, Mike Rupert was.
Right.
That was big news then.
Right, and Mike and I are good friends, too, by the way. But, okay, so we go. So she did nothing. As a matter of fact, part of that, believe it or not, something that was missed, but Greenspan, Alan Greenspan, visited her, walked the streets of her backyard in California, in Southern California and promised her $100 million, if I remember right, financial assistance. Now, I don't know where the heck he's supposed to get that assistance, but they got an awful lot of community assistance exactly in this period of time. I'm talking within a couple of weeks of what I'm talking with the report, and that was the end of her. She never complained anymore. So not to say that that was directly related, but it's very possible.
And for those that don't remember, inner city areas were turned into war zones when the CIA started bringing the crack in, and there were actual people so drugged out they wouldn't eat or even drink that looked like zombies with all their hair falling out. Literally, because I grew up in Dallas and saw a lot of these. They look scarier than actual, fake zombies in movies. So I could see why she was wanting to get the drugs stopped being shipped in. But I mean, that's like putting a Band-Aid on an axe wound to say, oh, here's $100 million for community stuff.
Yeah, I think actually she wanted to just get the credit. I don't know whether she really had a lot of care for that, but for that area. Okay, so I supplied my report to Sonny, and by the way, which is one of the ones that I have available at my website, and that's the one on, it's titled it's titled The CIA and Drugs, et cetera, et cetera. I supplied this in a DVD form. Sonny finally got to look at it. He got back to me. I received an advance information that Sonny had gone over it. He had freaked out and was moving forward to initiate a congressional inquiry based on primarily what I had supplied him with. And there's specifically a few people that he wanted to go after. I said, great, let me know how that happened, what's going on with it. Another month went by or whatever, and I received the call right in the middle of December, and I was told, Bob, Sonny has it all set up. In 3 weeks, when he comes back from the Christmas holidays, we're going to begin the inquiry into all these characters and everything that's going on. We want to make sure you're going to be a witness and that you will assist us to go from there forward. I said, absolutely. I'm in Los Angeles now, but when you need me, you let me know, and I'll be in Washington, and let's go and do it. And the big deal was that Sonny had said that they had set up subpoena powers for the congressional inquiry. Now, this may not mean anything. It's just a word to a lot of people. But the bottom line is that commonly, with all of these inquiries that are by Congress and Senate, they're shut down all the time. They're sidestepped. We are lied to. They come in. They have experts that come in and sit on the committees. They know how to shut up everything.
Well, here's an example. The TSA ordered Congress not to have all these top forensic security experts testify, proving their machines are frauds and it's all theater. And they tell, that was in the news the other day, the TSA tells Congress, and Obama tells Congress what he can and can't do. He tells Congress, hey, we're going to have a war, and you're not over that. The UN is now.
Yes, absolutely. So the total control thing by this time is just forget about it. Anybody that thinks you're going to get anything done, like the idea of write your congressman, give me a break. That's almost a comedy routine. But let me get to the most upsetting thing in 30 years in my life, I think, was the Sonny situation. So what happened is he gets my report. They're going to move forward with the subpoenas. Subpoenas means that they're going to be able to tell these people to answer the questions or do jail time for not answering the questions. That's the difference that Sonny had set up. He was going to be on this new intelligence committee. Everything was set and in place. And so I said, great. I wished them all a nice Christmas, and that was it. 10 days after I received that telephone call, Sonny Bono was murdered on the top of the ski slopes. Period. End of story. When it happened, I just totally freaked me out because the bottom line is I genuinely feel somewhat responsible for his death because I know the materials I sent him, and the phone call I had gotten 10 days earlier was the last straw for the bad guys. They were in a position to either stop, and actually they had to kill and terminate Sonny before he came back, which would have been about 10, 15 days after he was killed. They only had 10, 15 days left. If they hadn't killed him, and where he was going to move forward with the investigation would have been started, and somebody would have finished it, even if he had been killed then.
Incredible. Stay there.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a...
Yeah, we're not prisoners of doubt. We know what's going on. And we know that going along with corruption might work up front, but in the final equation, it destroys societies. And once corruption gets to a certain point, no one in the system can blow the whistle on anybody else, so the corruption gets worse and worse. And now you have John Corzine engaging in Bernie Madoff behavior publicly, perjuring himself, stealing money, and not getting in trouble. What comes next? We only got this short segment and a little bit of another, and then we've got Lindsey Williams for about 40 minutes, because Rob got back late last night and it stayed up all night and edited it, and it's ready. An exclusive interview with Joe Arpaio with breaking news on the birth certificate. And Arpaio looks pretty freaked out in this video. And we talked to their chief investigator. We got hours of incredible stuff for the nightly news, but we got about 10 minutes of this coming up later towards the end of the third hour. I'm trying to digest it during the breaks. It's powerful. And the type of censorship and intimidation the sheriff's going through, it's amazing. So that's coming up. Going back to Bob Fletcher of BobFletcherInvestigations.com. Finishing up with the Sonny Bono, because I want to spend a little bit of time with you. And then if you want, we'll have you back next week or the week after to really get into weather weapons and everything I originally wanted to get you on with. But I remember 93, 94, watching Access TV, people putting Bob Fletcher investigation videos on, and it was just, I was like, this guy's really credible. I've seen him on C-SPAN testifying to Congress, but then he's talking about weather weapons. That was just too far out for me. Now it's just, oh, the government's weather modifying, but it's secret. And it's everything Bob exposed. So I'm going to do a whole hour with him on how he knew all that. But finishing up with Sonny Bono's murder.
Okay, sure enough, and like I say, we end up running out of time because whatever, we're talking 30 years of crazy stuff here. So with Sonny's case, I called Sonny's office right away to my longtime associate up there for a few years, and he would not take my calls. Now, this is a guy I normally would eat lunch with in Washington, and so this was right afterwards. So then I knew I was right. The worst situation had happened, that he had been hit. So I started chasing it, and I had done a profuse inquiry. It took me a long time. They were totally withholding the autopsy reports, which I guess I'm still the only guy that's gotten it. They're holding a little bit of it back, but the autopsy in reality shows that he had. There's no way he could have run into the tree. That's all baloney. I got the footage of the area that was taken only a couple hours after he was found, and all the rest of that. I did an extensive. I've done a DVD report, which is available at my website also on Sonny's murder. But the bottom line, without getting into all the intricacies of it, there's no question it was impossible for him to go fast enough. He was 120 feet inside the tree line where he was off of the ski run. He was up actually in the woods.
What did they do? Like taser him and then drag him in and beat his brains out, or what'd they do?
You know, that part I'm not positive. It's one of two things. Either they had a deal somehow to like meet him. It's possible somebody told him they were going to give him information for his investigation, meet him secretly there, or he was hit someplace else and brought up on a ski sled and then rolled over into the snow and dragged up against the tree. But he was pissed